Hey up everyone, welcome to Yorkshire Gamer, and here we are on round 33 of the Yorkshire Gamers A Reet Big Wargames podcast, and welcome one and all to those who are regular listeners and to those who may be listening for the very first time. Welcome to Yorkshire Gamer, and today we are on one of our catch-up episodes, so I'll have a little bit of chat about how that works in a minute. But in Yorkshire Gamer news are the Italian Wars game that went down so well at Fiasco. I've just put something up on the blog about that, and that will be out on the road again on the 3rd of December at my local show in Pudsey, which is called Recon. And they sent me a booking form through, and I put down the table size, etc. And it said, "Is there anything else that you require?" So I put Yorkshire tea. I've never had a rider for a show before. You know, like these rock bands, they have M&Ms with the blue ones missing, that sort of thing. I thought Yorkshire tea's a fairly decent one. I would imagine that they're asking whether you want electricity and that sort of stuff, but that's a bit too sensible. But there we go. So, if you want to see the Italian Wars game, you are near Leeds at all, come along to the Pudsey show at Pudsey Civic Hall on the 3rd of December and come and say hello. You'll notice that it's only 2 weeks since the last episode was out, episode 32 with Chris Flowers, which was one of my regular interview episodes. And I've just upped the pace just a little bit because I've got a lot of people booked in, and there was a bit of delay while my wife was off sick, injured following her accident. So I'm just picking up the pace a little bit, and we're probably going to have one every couple of weeks up till Christmas now. And it has meant that I've had to push one of the guests back to the new year. And the new year is now looking pretty full all the way through to May, June time already, would you believe? So it's a fantastic thing. I have to say, there's so many people who are willing to come on the podcast for a start, because not everyone wants to talk live on air. Well, not live on air, but recorded. You know what I mean. And it's great to have so many people who want to come on the podcast. The problem I have is that people will contact me and say, "Oh, I'd love to come on your show. I've got this book coming out." Etc. etc. And if it's something I'm interested in, then I'm quite happy to get somebody on. But I said to one guy last week, "When's it out?" "Oh, in a couple of weeks' time." I'm sorry, got absolutely no chance. I'm not going to let people down who have been waiting to come on the podcast. I've got people who've been waiting since the beginning that I haven't managed to get around to. We are full up of guests. If I take everyone on my list, we're going to be here in 2026, and that's without me coming up with any other daft ideas for show formats, etc. So on to the episode itself, and this is a catch-up episode. For those of you who aren't familiar, I delve back into the past shows, and those of my previous guests who are stupid enough to answer the phone end up back on the show, and we talk about what they've done since they were on. And we've been going for coming up to 2 years now. So we've got a decent amount of guests to drop back into and to speak to. So my first guest this evening is somebody that we spoke to not that long ago, about 8, 9 months ago, Simon Miller. And Simon is the author of To the Strongest Rules, very popular set of rules. And my episode with Simon was the most popular single guest episode I've ever done. Some of the Brews in the Binyard ones proved a little bit more popular, but Simon he's a big draw. Is the lad? He's a big draw, big name, up in headlights. So sit back, get yourself a cup of tea, and let's spend an hour with Simon and see what he's been up to. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another one of the little interview sections on this catch-up edition. And we don't have to go too far back in time for this one. It was episode 22 in March of this year when I sat down and spoke to Simon Miller. So, hello, Simon. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Ken. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Lovely to see you again. We had a little bit of a chat at Partisan,
Yes, yes.
and we'll have a chat about your Roundway Down game shortly.
Oh, yes.
Did you go to the second Partisan? I didn't think I
Um,
saw you there.
I didn't. It's just a little late in the year for me, because of the drive.
Yeah,
Um, I have to leave really early to get up there, so you have to drive up in the dark and drive back in the dark, and it's just a little bit, uh,
so
just a tad too late for me.
you're a spring Partisan man.
I am. It is the first one I've missed in about a decade, I guess, 8
Yeah,
years. And I feel bad about that, but it's difficult. I've got a lot going on always, and um, I'll definitely be at the first one next year. Maybe I'll make the second one. We'll
excellent,
see.
excellent. Well, it's always good to see you around at the shows.
Hmm.
And regular listeners will no doubt remember back to the episode that we did with Simon. And unfortunately, we were cut a little bit short because Simon was booted out of the room by his wife, who had something
Oh
much more
yes.
important to do
Yeah,
than
she has
talk
an
about
actual
toy
job.
soldiers. Yeah, yeah. And we were just chatting away about toy soldiers and
We're
war
going
games.
on,
So
as is
we were
normal.
cut short, quite rightly so as well.
Well,
Um,
it's a mercy that sometimes these things come to an end because I could talk the hind legs off a donkey.
don't worry, we're in the same group here. We're the same group. And at the end of that, you'd already dropped the Sabo bases bomb on me during the
Oh,
War Games
yes,
Room 101.
controversial,
Yeah, and
controversial subject.
since that moment, Simon, I have been unable to miss them. Well, before I would have glance past them and maybe
Oh,
not paid attention, but now it's like these two big red arrows pointing at these ginormous bases every time I
I'm so,
see them. So
I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. No, I mean, I wouldn't mind playing with the Sabo bases. I was being a bit tongue in cheek.
no, it's
Uh,
that's what that section's all about. It's everyone in this hobby is really friendly and really helpful, and it's a fantastic place to be. But we all deserve to have our little niche hatreds that there's just something personal to us that we just can't stand. That was a great
yeah,
one, mate. That was a great one.
yeah. Oh, good. I'm
And,
glad you thought so.
I saw some figures a couple of 3 days ago, and they were a smaller scale, and the base was nearly as thick as the figures were, and I just thought of you straight away, Simon. Just thought of you straight
It
away.
is, yeah. It's really nice when you can actually get the figures right down next to the table. I mean, in an ideal world, something like a less than 1 mil thick metal base that would have
Yeah.
maybe an irregular edge and the figures just built up slightly on top of it. That would look super. I think my friend Andrew's got some like that. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that was the very subject that we were going to come on to when we ended,
Oh,
and
amazing.
that was the big red bat painted his wavy base. So,
Wobbly edge base. The
what?
wobbly
So,
edge base.
how did they come about? Were you drunk one night cutting a base out? And tell me about these wavy bases.
Right. Well, I can remember the very moment that the idea came to me. I was in a show. I was in a car with my friend Ian, coming back from a show at Reading, driving through the dark, and we were stuck in traffic somewhere near Slough. And it was the third or fourth time I'd run one of my games at shows with the big grids, and I just thought I don't need to have rectangular bases anymore because I don't need to have rectangular bases because there's no measurement.
Hmm.
I mean, the figures are just markers, really. So why would I have rectangular bases? The next week, I came back and designed some irregular edged bases, which I still sell. And in fact, they're my most popular item that I sell like that. Kind of like an oval, almost an oval, but it was a rectangle with the corners rounded off and irregular edges. And I do a standard size and narrower skirmish base and a deep base, and that meets most people's needs for that sort of thing. That came directly from that call.
Oh, so are they bases for like an entire unit? Does a unit sit on these bases, or are they like a traditional figure where you'll have like 5 or 6 bases to a unit?
Well, I've got two systems. The original system has bases that are about 12.5 centimeters wide. So I would mount a whole unit on that. And they're really good they're like an Impetus style base, if you like. I like that scenic look that Impetus had for their units. I think it's absolutely terrific. And they're very good. A lot of people use those on a 15 centimeter grid for our tournaments or just for basing their armies on. Sometimes get a little thrill when I see people are selling figures on eBay mounted on those units. Then we've got other bases that are slot together, where the edges slot together.
That's clever.
So for that, you have typically 2 or 3 bases to a unit. There are different designs of base. Some of the bases are the favorite base, the biggest seller, is about 6.5 centimeters wide and deep. And usually people I put 2 or 3 ranks of figures, usually on a 15 or 20 millimeter frontage onto those. And the big advantage of those over the other system is that I can use those both for when I'm wanting to play on a 15 centimeter grid, when I'll have 2 bases, or I can have 3 bases wide on a 20 centimeter grid. So they're quite a lot more flexible. Because the edges are irregular, when you've got 2 or 3 of them together, you don't tend to see the joins within the unit. So if you look at some of my 1672 figures, that they tend to look like they're mounted on one big 20 centimeter wide base, 19 centimeter wide base, whereas in fact they're mounted on 3 separate bases. And I've got other bases, so you can add an extra strip of figures or an extra rank behind. I've got a number of different systems, so I can usually find something to meet my own needs, which is what they were all designed for in the first place.
And they've got a bit of a following. I've seen quite a few of them around. Not just for your game systems either, for other systems.
They have proved surprisingly popular. I mean, I never thought anyone would want to play a grid-based game in the first place, and let alone people would want bases that weren't square. But it turns out they are quite popular. In fact, I shift a lot of those. I think I've had like 3 or 4 orders today, I think.
Wow.
All over the world. I was amused. I was selling some to a chap in Canada yesterday. The wood probably came from Canada in the first place. They prove very popular. They're just a little bit different. They're quite nice to play with, and aesthetically, I think especially if you chamfer the edges, so you've got that they do kind of sink away into the table in an attractive way.
Yeah, so we've kind of got the new church of the wavy bases, and you're spreading the gospel throughout the world.
Absolutely. And I mean, I really like them. So I spend a lot of time on basing. I typically there's a way of so I designed the bases, and then I thought, I'm going to have to stick magnetic sheet under these. And I thought, what a hassle. You have to cut it to the irregular edges. And my next bright idea was to pierce the bases to take rare earth magnets.
Good.
So most of the bases take 6 or 8 rare earth magnets that fit into holes in the bases. And those, the great advantage of the magnets is obviously all my figures go in really useful boxes. I line the really useful boxes with steel sheet, which I sell. That's been a surprisingly big seller too. It's funny, all the things I like doing seem quite popular with other people too. So you put in your 6 or 8 magnets, and then it keeps the base safe for storage. But the other great thing about it is that it stops the base warping when you apply all your wet glue over the top, your textured stuff. Often it's that moisture that makes the base curl up. The great thing is it keeps them flat while the glue dries to concrete-like hardness, and I don't think after that they're ever going to warp. To be honest,
That's like an unexpected advantage to them then.
Yeah, it is. I worked out a way of fitting the magnets, which I probably ought to tell other people about. After I used to put the magnets in, then put the super glue on to hold the magnets in place. It's quite quick to do, but invariably some of the super glue would stick the bases to the metal tray that I assembled them on. But I found out if you put underneath the base, you just stick a sticker. I bought thousands of labels, some of which are conveniently 6 centimeters square, and I just stick a label underneath. Then I fit the magnets, and it's really quick.
Yeah,
it's really quick. And I've got thousands of these bases made up in different configurations in the other room. And when I'm basing a unit up, I just go and get the relevant ones. I still base some figures on square bases, on rectangular bases, where I started off armies on those bases. But for all the new armies, I do all of those on a wobbly edged base.
brilliant. Have you got is there a wavy base Facebook group?
No, there isn't. It's a good idea, though.
Yeah,
like it.
we need to start one. We need to start one
to be
too.
different. Dare to be different.
Oh,
Yes,
that's fantastic.
So yeah, they were. I did those for. Most of my new figures go on to those, except where I'm matching old armies, and I did them in different systems. My English Civil War ones were based so that the units came out about 25 centimeters wide, which is quite wide. And I've later kind of settled for a 19 centimeter wide units for my new 1672 stuff. We'll probably chat about later. Just because I can get more units on the table with that. I still get quite a number of figures to a unit.
That's what we like to see. That's what we
yeah,
like to see.
Absolutely.
We're not skimping and cutting corners with figures on this show.
No, absolutely not. Get that lead on the table. I mean lead, actually. I mean it.
Exactly. And speaking of lead on tables, you did your round way down game.
Yes.
You took that to. I saw it at Partisan. Did you take it anywhere else?
I took it to Partisan and Colours.
Wow, brilliant!
It was, very popular at both shows. It's great. Met so many people. Biggest damn hill ever, I think. Well, apart from James Morris did a 6 foot high hill at Kerron at one of the salutes. Apart from that, I think it would have a reasonable claim to being a pretty high volume hill.
Yeah, it had quite an interesting construction, didn't it? It was it wasn't a normal EU health and safety regulated construction.
No,
how did you put it together?
It had about 50 or 60 empty, really useful boxes, which gave the bulk to the hill, and on top of those were about a dozen boards in various sizes, mostly 4x2s. Effectively, the really useful boxes are stacked in piles, a bit like a Roman hypercaust. On top of those, you've got the boards go, and then we taped the boards together for a little bit of extra strength, and then we laid over a carpet gripper, which really does help keep you, if you're assembling some complex terrain, it does help hold it all together. And then the cloths on top of that. And it was really good. I was threatening to stand on it to demonstrate its strength, but I balked at the last minute because it did take.
I was going to say, is that when the men with the white coats came to take you off the table?
They probably would have. They probably would have. I'm convinced it would have taken my weight, and they held together for both the games. It was a lot of fun. As I say, we tried to put the taller players at the parliamentarian end of the table. Quite nail-biting games as well.
And was that run as a participation game, or was it a display?
No, it's participation. I don't think I've ever done a display game. They're always played. If you come up and the game isn't playing, that's typically because I haven't managed to find enough players. Occasionally, people want to go to a show and buy Wargames figures and things like that, rather than play my silly games, and I usually manage to pre-book some people. But if I've been unusually crap, that may not be the case. But yeah, no, we always do participation, and the rules are pretty simple, so people manage to pick them up. You can more or less teach someone to play at a show.
Yeah, and did you run through it a few times in a day?
Yeah, we did. We usually do twice a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, about 2 hours ago. Because no one wants to play immediately. They come into a show, they want a bit of a look around. So we usually kick off around 11 for 2 hours, and then have a half-hour break, and then 2 hours sometime in the afternoon. They went down very well. So that was my...
Do you remember the scores on the doors? Do you remember which side won the most?
Oh, gosh. I honestly can't say I do.
Was there a win for both sides at some stage?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very even one. It was tended to be teetering on the, 1 or 2 victory medal points. I think both sides have won it. It's I certainly remember parliamentarians won the last game. They were really thundering down that hill. But I know the Royalists won some too, so I can't remember what the overall score is on that one.
No, obviously we're just rooting for the Royalists. That's all. Just hoping that they would win.
They definitely did win some of the games. They definitely did win some of the games. Yeah,
they're the ones that we'll talk about then.
Yeah.
And I've also seen that you took. I'll let you pronounce this. A different game to Selwig.
Yeah, we took second Mantinea.
There we go.
Mantinea to Selwig. That's a game I designed years ago that we played. I think I only ever played it at the Wargames Holiday Centre as one of the 4 or 5 games I used to run there in parallel. It's the famous battle between the Thebans and the Spartans and Athenians in this case, and various other minor states. It's got the Thebans have Epaminondas, their general, and what I call the mega phalanx. It's the 25 rank deep block of Thebans that hurtles across the battlefield, I think, like the prow of a warship. I think one of the contemporaries described it as, and tries to smash through the Athenian Spartan line. It's a very good game. Part of the reason I dusted it off was that I haven't for years been to the Society of Ancients Battle Day, and I noticed that they picked it as their game for next year. And I decided that I'm going to go to the Battle Day, take that game, and have some fun with it.
Oh, brilliant.
So after running the game at Selwig, I've been busy basing up more figures for it. I've raided my reserve boxes of painted but unbased figures to get some more units together. In fact, I bought an army off Red Z. He had some Spartans.
Brilliant.
And it's going to have cost not thousands, but 600 or 700 figures, I should think, by the time we run it in the spring. I'm rebasing a load of stuff for it too. So it's really good. It's an interesting battle. The Thebans have got the edge. There are more Thebans. They've got this massive battering ram of a phalanx. It's still pretty even. Spartans are Spartans. They're tough. They've got some advantages in maneuver, and it's been really, really interesting. Been fascinating looking at it. I've been trying to model. It's kicked off a whole load of things with me. We have a Spartan army list, and after running the game, I've got very enthused, and I found some more things that I think make it even more Spartan. I'm going to have the Skiritai, who are the Spartans had this this phalanx of hillmen from Skiritis in northern Laconia, who guarded the vulnerable left of their line, and it never occurred to me to model it before. So I'm modelling the Skiritai for the left of the line, and I'm going to do some ekdromoi, which are runners out. They're when a phalanx was threatened by light troops, the younger phalangites could run out with their big shields and try and chase off the light troops.
Right, makes sense.
So I'm working on those at the moment. It's a lot of fun, really interesting. It's really getting to the history of it.
Very early combined arms.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. And how did you find the attendance at those shows? Was it the Partisan was quite busy both times I went this year?
Yeah, Partisan was very busy. Stelwick, it was actually it wasn't as busy as the Partisan, but there were a lot of people there actually. It was a lot of fun.
Good.
We got to run the game again twice, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, both times to a conclusion. I think the Thebans won twice, but I never remember at the end of the I never remember at the end of the day who won. So, but I think they won twice there. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Got to meet some old friends, make some new ones. It was good to get those figures out again. They haven't been out for a few years, so it was great to see them all and remember what I'd got and think of some new projects and so forth.
Excellent. So I've been keeping up on your various postings on Facebook and on your blog, etc. And you've been chipping away on a number of projects, and
Too many.
You're not focused enough, young man.
No.
1672 Dutch is what I've seen,
Yeah.
and I've got to admit, I don't know much about this. So, what's this, and where is it going?
Where is it going? Yeah. Okay, so I was first attracted to the period when I saw some of the lovely Copperston sculpted figures. Originally, I think it was run under a range called the Glory of the Sun by Copperston. I think he sold it on to North Star, and they called it their North Star 1672 range. The thing that really sold it to me is the length of the coats. I'm just obsessed that they just look so good. They have these coats that go down to roughly their knees, so longer than you'd get in the 30 Years' War, the English Civil War, called a justacore. And they have loads of buttons. They have buttons on their buttons, button pockets, buttons on the back, buttons everywhere. Just these most fantastic coats with short sleeves, and they have puffy shirts that come out. So the figures look fantastic. And I bought some of these. I was thinking of using them for Sedgemoor, another project that I haven't carried through to a conclusion. It just took a life of its own, and I got really into the 1670s. So I've been doing a lot of reading on it. I've bought all the Helion books and a few other books as well. And basically, there are a couple of wars with mainly initially between the French and the Spanish in the Low Countries, and then between the French and the Dutch. The Dutch call it my pronunciation is going to be terrible, the Rampjaar, the disaster year, because the French did it's a bit like the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Massive forces, hugely outnumbering the Dutch, poured into the country, overrunning about half of it before the Dutch managed to flood the fields and hang on by their fingernails until the winter came, and then they managed to do a couple of counterattacks and get their armies up, and eventually fight the French off. And the British fought on both sides in the war. And although it's mainly French versus Dutch, you can have British, German, lots of Swiss, Polish. There's this regiment called the Courland Dragoons, who have furry dragoon hats with long bits that stick up and a tassel on the end, a bit like a nightcap. They look absolutely fantastic. They've all got sort of moustaches, and they're very, very fierce. And it's absolutely great because on the one hand, you've got the might of France with all of the elite units. It's a bit like the French army is a bit like Napoleonics. You've got there's a sort of imperial guard, almost an inner guard of the Maison du Roi of royal units in red, and then there's a slightly less posh gendarmerie and other regiments, and then gradually you work your way down to line cavalry. And it was a huge war, huge numbers of troops. I've been collecting them and getting them painted. I've got various people painting them at the moment, and essentially my plan for those is to carry on with the painting of those through the winter until Salute, and after Salute, then I'll concentrate on getting them all based up. I mean, I have got 20 odd regiments, mostly painted, about 4 based, but I haven't got many cavalry yet.
Yeah, I was going to say tactics-wise. Then we're kind of pre-war of Spanish and Austrian succession, post-English Civil War. So we're kind of still pike and shot, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Almost all of the units have got about a third pike, 2/3 shot on the wings, as you'd expect. The cavalry tactics, well, I'm trying to do some research on that at the moment. Wouldn't be unrecognisable to someone in the English Civil War, and certainly wouldn't be unrecognisable to someone in the War of the Spanish Succession. It's a sort of transitional thing. There aren't any particularly new weapons. The socket bayonet is coming in some, I think, around about then in some of the French units, or it might, it's around about that time the French are starting to experiment with the socket bayonet. So there's nothing hugely different to it, but it's a bit different to the English Civil War. You've got the battalions look very much like battalions. They're 5 or 6 ranks deep. They march forward in lines. It's very linear. You have lines, usually two lines of infantry with a battalion in the rear line supporting one in the front line, and on the wings 2 or 3 rows of squadrons of horse, which I'm still researching a little bit how they fought. But it just looks great. The uniforms are great. The flags are great. You've got this plucky Dutch fighting off the invading French. You've got Spanish with these slightly weird uniforms. There's an earlier war called the War of the Devolution, where the French did a blitzkrieg against the Spanish and did a bit of a job on them. That's a fun one to do. And as the war goes on, you can have British units coming in, Scots. It's great.
Excellent.
It's really great. So I'm enjoying that a lot.
Excellent. So that's the 1672 Dutch project. You did a little tinkering about with your Italian wars and your Swiss, I noticed as well.
Yeah, I had them out. I got my Swiss out. I used them as a tournament army a couple of times this year. I had great fun with them. They're quite an army to use, really. They're not for the faint-hearted.
I don't suppose subtlety comes in with tactics with them.
Well, there is a sort of subtlety. There's a lot of skill in the deployment of them. You really need to, in my rules, outscout the enemy, and then otherwise you find you put your Swiss down. If the opposite is true, you put your Swiss down, and then the enemy deploy anywhere but in front of your Swiss. There was one game where I was chasing the enemy around the table, trying to catch up with them as they ran away faster than me.
Classic tactic of avoiding contact.
But they're a really good army. They're very formidable. They're very fast. They're nasty. And I had great fun. Great fun with them. Must have played about 10 games with them, or 15 this year, and really enjoyed them. We went to a BritCon in the summer. First time I've been to BritCon. Absolute party. It was really great fun. I have slightly longer to play a game, so there's a game I've never managed to finish a game against. We've never had enough time to finish the game, so we agreed we'd play a game through to a conclusion, and it took 4 hours. We played on into the evening. We were the last people. The security guards were
stood there looking at the watch.
But we had a lot of fun. A lot of fun at BritCon.
Brilliant.
So
You've done quite a few competitions this year, haven't you?
I have, yeah. I like to go to competitions because I don't really get to play at home, and I haven't got a club around me. So the main time I get to play my rules is in a sort of bingey way at competition. So I had my Swiss. I've taken my Indian army to some classical Indian army to some tournaments as well, with all its elephants, 16 elephant models. That was fun. And I took the last one. I took a Imperial Seleucid army too, which was turned out to be a really good army. wasn't too shabby in the fighting department either.
Excellent.
Lots of side chariots and elephants and pipe phalanxes, and it was good. Really good fun.
And how does your opponent feel in those situations when they're fighting the rule writer?
Well, I'd like to say I try not to be too hard on them.
Do you?
Actually, no, in practice they quite often beat me. So,
is there any time when you've had to hold the rules up and just point at the name at the bottom?
No, I mean there's a certain extra. Sometimes, I mean, I'm by no means, because I only get to play 5 or 6 days a year.
Yeah.
I'm not always right on top of the rules. I do make mistakes. In the last tournament, I got one aspect of the rule badly wrong. We actually had to redo a couple of turns because I told him he couldn't do something, and then I realised after a couple of turns that he absolutely could do what he'd been intending to do. We just had to wind it back and sort of restart. So, you know, the tournament organizer who comes along and asks me to adjudicate a rule is really taking his life into his hands. I can definitely direct him to people who have a better grasp of the rules than do I. I mean, I do all right. I'm usually around the middle or sometimes I'm in the upper half of the tournament rankings, but I'm not the best player. I am fairly competitive, but I'm not far from being the most competitive player. I like to think, at least.
Well, it's good. It's good to see that you've got the grace to say I'm not 100% sure with these rules, and I wrote them.
Yeah, well, you know, you see, I kind of wrote the rules, and I rewrote the rules, and I rewrote the rewrites, and then I wrote several other sets of rules, and they're all jumbled up in my brain. So if you ask me for a rule adjudication, you might get one that's from like 2016, or you might get one that's from 2025 that hasn't yet been published. So it's hazardous, very hazardous.
Oh, perfect. And when we were speaking in the episode, you mentioned the Renaissance version of the rules, and you promised us all that they would be out by autumn.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So go on. What excuse have we got this time?
I've done a bit more. I've done a bit more on those, but I haven't done a great deal. I got close to what I thought was actually releasing some, and then I just thought there are some aspects of these that are just over complex, and so I revisited them and stripped them back a little bit and simplified things. And I'm kind of working on gone a bit away from the original set, and the more I think about it, that so many things in the original set are great. I've kind of been removing some of the changes that I was making and getting closer to the original set. So they're still going on at a slow rate. I would say in my defense, apart from the fact I've been busy with things non-wargaming, I have spent a lot of time working on the army lists, some more rules in the even stronger thing. I may have written a book.
Yes, you dropped this on me in the pre-chat.
Yeah, I may have half written a book. So I heard this morning from Helion that a book that I helped. There's a chap called Massimo Predonzani in Italy who's been writing a series of books on the Italian wars for them. And I heard he was writing a book about a battle that I intend to be the test battle for the Renaissance set, which I'd done a lot of research on. I heard he was writing this, and I had a copy of his original book in French, and I had some new insights I felt to offer him, and I sent him my new insights. And about a week later, he came back and said, "Well, would you like to rewrite all the sections relating to the actual battle?" And I thought, wow, I probably wouldn't mind that, actually. Yeah. So he was very nice and very patient with me as I butchered all these chapters and really rewrote the battle, moving it from the place where even the local authority in Ceresole think the battle took place. I don't think it took place there.
Right.
I've moved it to a slightly less glamorous location on an industrial estate. But anyhow, that's another story. they won't be pleased when they have to redirect their battlefield walks from beautiful country lanes flanked with olive trees to Il Fornace industrial estate.
Past the Italian version of Lidl, and
Yeah, it's not as nice as Lidl.
I'm trying to remember the Italian supermarkets because we've spent quite a lot of time. Mercato's one of them. I can't remember. There's quite a few of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be interesting. So for the uninitiated, then are we 15? What was it?
1544.
44. Just give us a
got
brief premise of the battle.
Yeah, so the French and the Imperials have been fighting for control of Turin, with one getting the upper hand and the other one getting the upper hand. The French haven't fought a proper pitched battle for 20 years since the Imperials did a real job on them at Pavia. For various circumstances, for various reasons, they decide that they're going to finally risk a battle, and they take the field against the Imperials, and the two armies meet near Cereste d'Alba, which is a sort of hilltop, very attractive looking town, which I haven't visited, although I have driven around it several thousand times on Google Street View. I know every inch of it from Google Street View. And, which is a great tool for researching a battlefield. I did a lot of research on it. I learned French so that I could understand the French text better.
Brilliant.
So it took me a while, but it's a really good battle. It's not very well known because in the aftermath of the battle, the French won the battle, but they kind of lost the war. So it's not one that's the French talked about that much afterwards. But it is a terrific battle. It's very, you've got pike blocks, you've got lots of arquebusiers all over the place. You've got French gendarmes, really heavy cavalry, Swiss Landsknechts, bad war massacres. You've got Blaise de Montluc, who's my personal hero, a real terrific sort of picaresque adventurer, come captain, come general, come marshal of France, who's good to read his account. Is so exciting. So it's a great battle. It's a really great battle. It's very manageable. I think it should be a popular battle for wargamers because I think I've helped make a lot more sense of it because I am a wargamer more than a historian. I think it's now kind of managed to explain a little bit about how the battlefield worked and why the battle took place the way that it did.
What sort of size forces are they on both sides?
Sort of 15 to 20,000 range. There's some controversy about the number of French cavalry there. I think there were a lot more French cavalry than some of the accounts believe were actually present, which is, I think, what in the end helped the French win it. But we present
is that because they were counting lances rather than individuals? Yeah, and I've seen that a few times. Yeah,
because basically, the Montluc says, this lord had 50 gendarmes, and this lord had 80, and this lord had 80. And people tend to add those up and think that is the formation that was there. Yeah. But they were in a lance, and for every gendarme, there were probably 2 or 3 archers.
Yeah.
Some of the archers were detached and fought on one flank, but it's likely that there were at least as many archers and possibly even 2 archers for every gendarme in the main body. So, and some of the accounts talk about the French having a lot of cavalry present, French accounts, which had no reason to lie about the number of cavalry. And I think there were a lot of them around.
Yeah. It's something I've toyed with in terms of game or unit representation, is to have a front rank of gendarmes with a second rank of lesser armoured squire types, if you like.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a better representation.
Yes, I think the French archers were, depending on where you are in history, they were quite well. They weren't as heavily armoured as gendarmes, but they would have had a lance or a light lance, and pretty much mostly full plate armor. And I think even the cavalry that are called light cavalry at the battle weren't light cavalry in the skirmishing sense. They were light cavalry in that they were lighter than gendarmes. Well, it was a terrific battle, very, very bloody, terrible massacres, blood, literally, 5,000-10,000 people killed, particularly in the Imperialist army. That was really, really beaten about. But a very interesting battle, and I think one that people would be able to reconstruct, especially if I ever get my rules published, because I have got a scenario written for the battle. Because originally I got interested in the battle because I was trying to work out exactly how a Renaissance battle took place. So I thought I'd look at one in real detail. And I have a scenario that fits on a 12 by 8 box grid with units that would be pretty recognizable to anyone that plays to the strongest.
Obviously, we're 20 years on from Pavia. Had much changed tactically and weapon-wise, or are we in that classic pike block arquebusier phase?
Basically, you've got your pike block, you've got your arquebusiers on the wings of the pike block, but I think at the battle, a lot of the arquebusiers were detached. Almost all the arquebusiers were detached in this. They had this mammoth 4 to 5 hour skirmish with thousands and thousands of arquebusiers marching around in this low valley between the two lines, shooting it out. And I think by the time the battle proper started, most of the arquebusiers had effectively been expended. They felt they'd done their duty and buggered off. Yeah, buggered off. No, exactly. I was going to say buggered off. Then I wondered if I should be polluting your show with my foul language. But anyhow, so by the time of the actual, it came to push a pike, I don't think there were that many arquebusiers left around the pike blocks, and it was. So it was an unusual battle in that there was a mammoth skirmish. Other things that had changed. The Spanish managed to keep arquebusiers supporting one of their pike blocks. They did no end of damage to the French gendarmes, killed loads of them every time the French drew up for an attack. At one point, the French actually rode right the way through the Spanish pike square and out the other side. Yeah. And then all the Spaniards got up and reformed, and they were back to the beginning again. So there was that. But I think one of the things that is different to Pavia is that the artillery was, I think, more devastating and more mobile. So I'm thinking that the guns had a higher rate of fire, were more accurate, and it was able to both sides were able to reposition some guns during the battle. So that I think the battle was to an extent dictated by the artillery. I'm not saying the artillery killed loads of people, but I think the artillery forced the Imperials to attack when they probably would have preferred to stay where they were.
Yeah, because repositioning of artillery is a relatively new concept at that time, isn't it? Certainly with anything more than a tiny little push-around gun.
Yeah, but they clearly some of these guns that were moved were larger guns. They talk about both, I think, Italian and French guns were captured by the other sides. There was some fighting around a farmhouse called the Maisonette. That was that was the most important place on the battlefield, which I think I've managed to identify. I hope I've managed to identify anyhow. I'm pretty confident.
Excellent.
You'll have to read the book. You'll have to read the book, which I found out was published yesterday or today. I haven't got my copy of it yet. But obviously I know what's in it. It's on the Helion site. Most of it is written by about 2/3 of it, or 3/4 of it. About 2/3 of it was written by Massimo, but I did a lot of work on the sections actually relating to the battle.
Is there a wargaming section in there, or is it orders of battle and maps that would be most interesting to us, as well as obviously the bits you've written?
It's basically the orders of battle, the deployments, the maps, the terrain, and how I see the sequence of the battle going, which is somewhat different to other people that have written about it. As is my location is my location is somewhat different as well.
Next to Lidl's and the Italian dental supply warehouse.
No, it's it's called Il Fornace, this industrial estate. I imagine there's a big furnace of some kind there. I don't know what they make there, but it looks very industrial, and certainly by my account there would have been fighting sort of around that area. Around the area where it is, and luckily, most of the battlefield the battlefield is still there. I hope next year to get a chance to go there. It was difficult, last year, partly because of COVID, and partly because I had time pressures to get the book finished. But I do hope I'll be able to go there next year and actually walk it or cycle it, because it's a fair size. It'll be enough to want to have a bike or something like that to get on.
Excellent. Well, I shall definitely be getting a copy of that to add to my 3 other books from the range. So I'll be looking to get that signed at some stage.
Oh, of course, of course, yes.
Yes. I had somebody come up to me at I did a big Italian Wars game at Fiasco in Leeds a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I had somebody want to take a selfie with me, which is the first one that I've had.
Which
was,
fantastic!
So, obviously, we are
fantastic.
moving up the celebrity ranks from Cat Z to Cat Y. We're on our way up to. So I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here! I'm obviously moving on.
No, it's great. I mean, I never thought I'd be writing a book. And indeed, I generally, I wouldn't think. I'm generally very busy, and I wouldn't have time to do it. With this particular one, because I'd done all the research for my own rules, it was very easy to just go and write the book. And I think I've managed to make a real sense of it in a way that, I'm walking in some fairly illustrious footprints of people that have been there before. I've got a slightly different take on it, which I think could be quite interesting. And I'm going to be doing a talk on it at some Helion conference next year, which would be that'll be a bit scary because they probably are historians that are going to be there, and I'm a wargamer, a wargamer with a little bit of historian in me.
I have to put a big game of it in the conference for people to see. That would be good.
The terrible irony is I don't have any suitable figures. It's kind of, I know, go figure. I actually don't have any suitable figures. I have got an army. I've made an army of wooden blocks up for playtesting with the Renaissance rules, but I haven't actually played the first game with it yet, but hopefully I will fairly soon.
Fingers crossed, mate.
So that's been an exciting and interesting thing to do. I probably would have published Renaissance if I hadn't got distracted by writing the book. But I think hopefully people will find it's a good distraction. And the book would be much better for having, until I really researched the battle, I really didn't have any idea about the interplay and the tactics at the time. And I feel now I've got a pretty good idea.
Excellent. Well, we'll just finish off then with a little chat about what your plans are. We've talked about the rules and you being distracted and anything. Have you got have you got a display game planned for next year?
Yes. So the big modelling projects I'm working on at the moment is the 1672 stuff in the background, where I'm getting figures assembled and I've got painters painting regiments for me. But I don't intend to base many of those until after Salute. So the big one is Salute. It's the big anniversary year at Salute. I'm taking a game that I played before at the Wargames Holiday Centre 5 years back called Ipsus, which is a classical phalanx versus phalanx successor battle.
Love a bit of successor battle.
Yeah, so it's a huge battle, scythe chariots, dozens of elephants. Essentially, it's got I'm planning 2 phalanxes that are both about 10 feet long. And the project I'm working on is to try and get my phalanxes from 4 ranks deep to 6 ranks deep, just for that little bit of extra vavavoom. I can say it will make no difference whatsoever to the game's play.
Visually,
they will. Visually, for those that appreciate, I always get a bit bitter at these shows. There's so many shows. It's all about the terrain. My terrain is going to be boring as whatever. But the army should be It was fought on a plane basically. Much as I try and inject, I would love to be able to inject a waterway, some ships, a major city, a temple, but there wasn't any of that. And my needing to stick to realism prevents me from adding all these extra features. So all you get really is a huge, massive battle with thousands of figures. And at the moment, I'm trying to work out how on earth I'm going to get them all finished in time, scratching through my list of friends, thinking who I can
tap up for some figures.
Another unit or finish a unit or do some basing. You know, you guys, you're all out there. You'll be getting a call at some point when I start panicking. I'll probably reach the urine drinking stage around about February, I would imagine, when I desperately need additional help.
Fantastic.
So, but I mean, it should be really good. It'll be a great game.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming back on, Simon. It's been great to talk to you.
Always a pleasure.
And to have the exclusive interview with the author of the new Helion book.
The co-author. Because, as I say, Mass wrote the majority of the book. I'm just guilty for the probably controversial location of the battle.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I will now look forward to that book with a different light, because I wasn't aware. I was aware of the book, but I wasn't aware of your involvement in it. So I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I haven't shouted very much about it. I haven't shouted very much about it, but I have been working hard on it. I've done a lot of work on it, and it's been very exciting. So thank you so much for inviting me on here again. Always a great pleasure to come and have a chat.
No worries, Simon. I shall look forward to chatting with you at a show somewhere in the future.
Somewhere soon. Yeah, that would be great.
Lovely to talk to Simon again, such a smashing guy. And we finally got to hear the story of his wavy bases, which we didn't quite get to fit in at the end of his full episode. So that was great to hear, and we have to make sure that we keep badgering him so he eventually gets these Renaissance rules done and finished. My next guest is going way back in the mists of time, and it's Richard Harris, my friend, who runs a company called Legendary Wargames with a colleague and a friend of mine, Andy Lawson, and he was episode 2. He was the third person, because I had 2 guests on the first episode. So he was one of my guests from the original 5 episodes, which could have been it. It could have been it. If you lot weren't listening, I would have knocked it on the head after 5. So it's your fault. We're up to 33, is what I'm kind of saying. So Richard, he's bless him. He's not had a brilliant year, but we get to chat up with him, talk with him about his wargaming and what's going on at Legendary Wargames. So if you've stretched your legs and washed your paintbrush, it's time for another half hour of chat with Richard Harris. Well, hello and welcome to little mini interviews for this episode. And we're going all the way back to episode 2 for this one. And that was on March 2021 when we spoke to my old friend Richard Harris from Legendary Wargames. So let's welcome him back to the show. Hello, Richard.
Hello. Yeah, nice to be back.
Excellent. Good to see you again, mate. Yeah. I last bumped into you at Partisan when you were putting on an American Civil War game.
Yes.
Have you been to a few shows this year?
Well, actually, that's probably the only show I've been to. We did 2 Partisan shows. Yeah, we only put a game on at this one. I've just had a rough year with my mum died, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law have died this year as well. So I've been tied up doing other things. So.
Yeah, it's been a tough year for you, mate. So I understand that. Yeah. But you put on a great display at Partisan with a bit of American Civil War. Was it a specific battle that you did?
Yeah, it was just a small action, Ringgold Gap. Basically, was the army under Hooker chasing a Confederate force, and they had the Confederates threw out a rear guard and held a wooded ridge, and they had to hold it long enough for the Confederate baggage to get away. A lot of it got away on a train or trains, so they held them up for half a day, and then they got the order to withdraw.
So yeah, it was a good looking game. There's lots of trees involved. Have you bought some more trees? Because another game we're going to talk about later on, there's a lot of trees involved.
Yeah. Well, we've got trees from our collection, and then we always try to do a joint game when we're at Fiasco. So it's Bramley Barn Wargamers and Legendary Wargames. So we get to use Chris Flower's collection as well. So he has a lot of trees as well. So we put them together.
Yeah, Chris was the last guest on the podcast, and
yes,
I got to sit down and have a cup of tea with him in his room with his lovely collection of figures.
Yes, I listened to it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I hope you would. You got a mention, I think. He was very kind about you.
Yeah, yes, he gave me a mention a couple of times. Yeah, just reminiscing back about the 175th Waterloo. Peter Gilder's last game, really, there. So, yeah, where Peter pulled a fast one with the rules on me. Took me a bit by surprise.
Oh, yes. I suppose you couldn't really complain at the time, could you?
No. It was quite... I was a bit exasperated, shall we say, and there were a few people looking at me going, no, don't push it. So I had to relent and let him fire. Basically, he fired at me out of sequence at the end of a turn.
All right.
I just chopped down one of his battalions with the Scots Greys and rallied immediately in front of another battalion. So I thought, oh, great, I can charge another battalion. He says, oh, no, I can fire it,
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, I bet he was playing French.
Yes, he was playing French. Yes.
Yeah, because these every story I get is that he did do a bit of a dodgy rule. It was always in favour of the French.
Yeah, but his rules for the British. I think when you fight in the Peninsula, he did quite like the British as well. So the British were a good army.
So he liked winning, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that would be the best way to say it. Well, we all like winning,
excellent.
Don't we? So.
we do, mate. Yeah. We do. And have you got anything planned for shows next year? Are you going to take a game out then?
Yeah, I think First Partisan, as I say, we do the Bramley Barn. Yeah. Chris and Steve Shan looking to put on one of his scenarios from his new book that he's got coming out on Leipzig. So the plan is we're going to do something there. Then Chris wants to fight Leipzig for our group. Obviously, our table's big enough, and then we'll put it on as a game for Legendary Wargames as well.
Excellent, because it's the... what anniversary is it going to be next year?
Well, it's... what are we on? We're on...
yeah, I don't want to embarrass myself and get it wrong. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, what will it be? It'll be 100 and... about 190... It'll be 190 years, something like
that. Yeah, something like that. So, yeah.
No, it'll be more than that, won't it?
We're just proving we're not very good at maths here, aren't we?
No. Well...
200. It'll be 200. It'll be 210.
210. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 210. Yeah.
210.
It doesn't normally take us that long, listeners. We I am a graduate engineer. I normally have a calculator these days. Well, that sounds like it's going to be quite a spectacular do then.
Yes. We're looking at which we've been doing for a while we've been playing the games this year. we realise that there's not as many Grand Manor players out there that there once was. We do have a small group of visitors, different people who come, who still do play Grand Manor, just as we do. So we're looking at changing the rules a little bit, not a lot, but just making them a bit more playable, a bit easier to play.
Okay, yeah, that'll be interesting to see what you come up with there.
Yeah. It's there are people who have a lot of house rules for their games, so we'll see what we come up with.
Have you considered doing like different rule periods for different weekends? Have you, maybe doing a general Dame or a Black Powder weekend or something like that?
Yeah, well, we're very open to groups to come, and if they want to play their own rules, we're open to requests quite freely. We advertise our weekends with Grand Manor because, not knowing those rules well, we feel as though we would struggle to get the balance right. But if anybody wanted to come and do a game, we're quite happy to put the tables and provide tables, figures, and whatever. So
excellent.
Yeah.
And you've had a few games on this year. Just looking down the list here, Borodino, that's another big Napoleonic one. I think, did you go through that a couple of times?
Well, it was something we did a couple of years ago, and then a group decided they wanted to play Borodino. It was one of the favourite games. So, yeah, that was quite a ding-dong game, was that? Yeah. The Russians made a very aggressive defence, which was quite different to how most other people fight the battle. So they managed to hang on to Borodino for the whole weekend.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, the French made a couple of different tactical decisions, and they decided not to assault the Grand Redoubt, which meant that the artillery from there could fire over the river and into the poles as they attacked Borodino, which caused them no end of problems.
Yeah, it sounds like nobody had read about what happened at the battle.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think they said they knew the rules, so they just thought rather than assault the Grand Redoubt, they put the forces elsewhere, and it just hindered them a little bit as they did that. So but interesting. So they really enjoyed the weekend. So it worked well.
Brilliant. Yeah. It's one of those classic Napoleonic battles, isn't it, Borodino? And quite often the Russian players are quite passive and just sit there and wait for the French. So it's interesting to see a more aggressive tactics from the Russians. That's a new one.
Yes,
for me anyway.
It is for me. Yeah, I've never seen them take such an aggressive stance. So it was good. Yeah, it worked well as a game. Yeah,
it's nice to see, isn't it, from a historical perspective, how things could have gone differently with different tactics and different priorities in a game. And that's what war games is all about.
That's right. Yes, of course it is. Yeah, and it's something which I think Grand Manor does give a game. I know that people tend to criticise Grand Manor on the command and control, but they were designed by Peter for quite big multiplayer games, and having 5 or 6 commanders aside gives you that command indecision because you've got players doing their own thing. Even though you've a C&C who might give them orders, they do the exact opposite or don't do, or they don't combine attacks together. So you get that from those rules.
You're effectively you're having real command and control problems with real people.
That's right.
Rather than trying to build it into the rules with orders or chits or whatever your rule set particularly does.
That's right.
Yeah, it's good to see. And then we had a bit of Talavera as well.
Talavera.
How did that go? I've never known the French do anything in Talavera.
Well, interestingly, the French actually got a win, but it was because the British commander decided that he was there for the weekend, and therefore he wasn't going to sit on a hill. He was going to go down and attack the French, which kind of went well in its early stages. But then he suddenly found out, I'm actually outnumbered here. and things by the end of it were going badly.
Yeah, that lad Wellington, he had a good idea or two. So
Yeah.
if it worked for him, I'd be reluctant to try
Yes.
something different.
Yes.
To be honest. Oh, brilliant! Well, that was a lesson learned. I hope for
Yes.
him.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you've done a bit of Arnhem as well. Very, very popular part of World War Two.
Yes.
One of my other guests on this particular show, Nick Skinner, I've talked quite a lot with him about Arnhem on this episode.
Yes.
So which sort of bit of the battle were portraying?
Well, we had because we've got flexibility in the tables. We had a two 14 by 6 tables and a 15 by 6 table. On the 15 by 6, there was Arnhem and Oosterbeek, and they were fighting their game at their pace. So it was 3 individual games. So it was quite a clever scenario.
That's a good idea.
And then we had the 30 core going really from Joe Bridge to up the road to Nijmegen. And there were 2 games doing that, and they both played separately. And then there was a table at the end where you could work out. This game was done by Andy, who's the other partner in Legendary Wargames. Yeah. And he could work out by what period they'd got to and how far they'd got, to how far they'd got in Arnhem, to how far they'd got in the other table, and come up with a result.
So how did 30 core do? Did they get there?
No, they fell short, and the Paras, although they did very badly in Arnhem, they were pushed. They couldn't manage to secure the bridge. So, and actually they stalled on the roads. Did 30 core. So
fairly close to real life then.
Yeah. Pretty historical actually. Yeah. It was.
Sometimes it's good to see that, and you kind of know your rules are working and your scenarios are right if you're not far off historical.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so we're using we're playing rapid fire. The guys who they've been coming with us for a while, and they really liked it. Yeah, it's the first time they played rapid fire, or some of them have played rapid fire, and they all got on with it and really enjoyed it.
And rapid fire, then there's just a new version released, isn't there, or been recently released?
Yes.
Are you still working on the classic rules, or have you switched to the newer ones?
No, we're still with the classic ones. We have tried the new rules, and although there's a few very interesting points in there, so we may well be taking some of those bits and putting them in with the classic rules. But we didn't think it offered enough difference for us to change over. We're all comfortable with the rules we play. So
yeah, do you think it's trying to get the rules into a newer generation? I have to say I haven't looked at what they've done with it.
Yeah, it's a more modern thing where you're doing away with tables and going to using lots of dice. So instead of having how the artillery worked, instead of having points values for the guns and then looking at how many hits you get and then totaling the points up and rolling dice, you get a number of dice to roll for each hit you get. So you end up rolling loads of dice.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that would be more with the modern way of thinking, if you like. Yeah. I can see as well that if you've played classic rapid fire for 20 years or more, then
that's right.
It's not worth changing. I'm very much the same. If I've got a set of rules I like, I'll stick with them.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Well, if we all, I think you're always searching for something that might be better, and if you don't find something that is comfortable, you stick with the rules that you know. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So whatever people play that they're comfortable with is fine.
Excellent. Yeah. So have you started to think about games for next year, a schedule for what you're going to put on? Obviously we've talked about Leipzig, but anything else?
We've got a weekend at the beginning, probably in March. We normally start again in March because the weather's where we are up here. We're a bit prone to bad weather, so we're going to start with a group who want to come and do a Sudan campaign.
Brilliant!
A big Sudan game. And I've been. Do you know Dave Doherty?
I do. I know Mr.
Yeah.
Doherty. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Man of 1,000 camels.
Absolutely. We've been in touch, and we've always wanted. We've spoken a few times about getting a sort of big grand game on using his figures and our figures. So we think we're going to do that in March. So he's going to come down and bring his collection, and we've got probably a similar sort of setup to the Arnhem game, with the first day spent going down 2 15-foot tables, and then the final, they'll be the 2 columns, and then they will then arrive to relieve Khartoum, or not.
Is this going to be using the or not? Is this going to be using the Sands of Sudan rules?
Yes, Sands of Sudan. Yeah,
brilliant. We had Carlo on 2 or 3 episodes ago. You know, Carlo Pagano, the guy who put them together.
I do, yes.
Looks great, and I think it's a suitable. The way those rules work are suitable for a number of periods. We talked about Vietnam on the podcast as a potential. I think Dave Doherty was looking at that as well.
Yeah, I started, although it's a number of years ago, I started collecting some 20mm Vietnam, and I was looking for a system that would work for us up here at Legendary Wargames, so you could fight on multiple tables, but with a bigger scale, not so much skirmish as bigger units. But I just thought it would work really well to have between 6, or up to 6 tables, and you could have a fire base on one, an air base on another, a town on another, a valley on another with a village, some white water, some brown water, should I say, on another, and tie them all into a mini campaign that you could do over a weekend.
Yeah, that would be superb. If you can get that off the ground, that'll be superb, mate. It really will.
Yeah. Well, it's just on hold at the minute. When we moved up here, and then I've been tied up getting the cabin sorted and doing all that, and then life getting in the way. So I'll crack on with that once we get Grand Skeedadle sorted.
Excellent. Well, I saw a few photographs that you put on Facebook last couple of days from the weekend, and you were proper big ACWing over the weekend.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, we thought it was the Battle of the Wilderness, but we only had 5 players in the end. So I just did the Orange Courthouse Road. So that's Early's Core, going down, trying to get to the junction of the Wilderness Tavern. And again, that went reasonably historical in that Sedgwick had bivouacked on the far side of by the tavern, and they both got to Saunders Field about the same time. And then the fight ensued around Saunders Field. And the Confederates tried a big flanking attack, but just ran into other Union brigades. And so it all started to stall. So it went quite well. We learned quite a lot about the rules and a few changes that we can make, which is all going well to finishing them off and getting them sorted.
So have you any idea how long they're going to be before they're out in the world, these Grand Skeedadle rules?
I would hope we could get them sorted for summer.
Brilliant.
So that should be possible now. Probably just got to work on field defences and just making sure we've got the balance right for attacking and defending field defences. That's the only thing really that I'm not entirely sure about at the minute. So we've played a couple of games like that, but I'm not entirely happy with the balance we've got yet. So we'll play test that a couple of times and make sure that works.
Were these the rules that were used at the holiday centre, or is this something new?
They're Peter Gilder's old rules that he he based his rules in Grand Manor or on Grand Manor.
Yeah.
We've made a few changes. I don't know whether people will remember. Chris Flowers was talking about his Gettysburg game that he did at Sheffield Triples, and Steve Shan had got hold of Peter's rules and added a close combat system to it, just to try and make it a bit more Civil War. So that's what we're using, and we've made a few other changes as well. And we seem to get a decent feel for the Civil War. It seems to work quite well.
And has it got that Grand Manor feel to them? If if you're a regular Grand Manor would you kind of feel at home with it?
I think so. Yes, I think it's very different, obviously, because you've got both sides fighting in lines, and the firepower is much more than the Napoleonic period. So your tactics have to be different. Can take a bit of getting used to, and you can still form attacks, which they would have done. Well, they did do by having something like what we call column of lines. So a brigade would attack rather than just one behind the other, and that gives them a better chance as the casualties are spread amongst the brigade, which gives them a chance of getting in.
And is the command and control, is that like we spoke about earlier on, more to do with the number of players fixed within the rules?
Yes, yeah. We tend to find that we have more command bases on than you would if you were fighting Grand Manor. So we have brigade commanders, divisional commanders, because in these rules you can attach officers to regiments when they're going into a close combat, and they get their command value added to the close combat, which was there were so many officers shot during the Civil War. It reflects that willingness for them to lead their troops into battle.
Yeah, it was a dangerous occupation, wasn't it? Being an officer in the
It certainly
Civil War.
Was. Yes. And of course, there were many friendly fire incidents as well. Jackson, I think, and Longstreet were both shot by their own troops. But
it doesn't bode well, does it?
No, we don't. We don't have that in the rules. We don't do friendly fire. But yes,
brilliant. Yeah. And have you got anything yourself personally, project wise, that you're going to look at that's different, or you just build? Or I'm not just building, but are you going to be building on your existing projects for the coming year?
It's building on existing projects. So we're building a Napoleonic collection alongside Chris's. Just little bits that we need to build up. I'd love to do Wagram next year sometime, and we need to build up an Austrian corps, possibly even a light division as well. But we'll see how we go, and we're well on with that. And then the Civil War will need more figures as well to what we've got. So we'll be building that.
You always need more figures, mate. You always need more figures.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the Wargamers curse, isn't it?
It is. It is, mate. It always is.
Yeah.
Well, it's been lovely sort of catching up with you today, Richard, and hearing about your plans for next year and where things are going. Just remind everyone, if they fancy a big game weekend, how do they get hold of Legendary Wargames, and how do they do the booking, etc.?
You can contact us through Facebook if you want to message through Facebook, and then there's a website, and we post the events on an events page. You can book or ask a question contact us through that as well. Through that, we have a phone number on the Facebook page, so if you wanted to ring with a query, that's absolutely fine, or messages.
Are you going to be putting a game on at Recon in a few weeks' time?
No, we've nothing planned for Recon, but I may well I'll have to see. I might see if I can get down and take part in your Italian Wars game. Yeah, I was talking.
Very good, very good.
Well, I heard good things about it from Richard Croysdale.
Yes, Richard turned himself into Cesare Borgia for the day.
That's right.
Without he didn't do all the drinking and rowdy fighting and running off with women. He just did the fighting. So he was most welcome. Most welcome.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm gonna see if I can get down for that. So that'd be good.
Brilliant. Well, it'd be lovely to see you there, mate.
And
thanks for coming on the show again. Much appreciated.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting.
No worries. And hopefully some of our listeners will get to meet up with you over at Legendary Wargames this year. And next year.
Yeah, that certainly would be lovely. Yeah. We're flexible to what people want to do, and we'll listen to any concepts put towards us. Yeah. Yeah.
That's fantastic, mate. Thanks very much, Richard. Good night.
Yeah. Cheers, Ken. Thanks very much.
Great catch up with Richard there. Looking forward to an increased schedule at Legendary Wargames next year, and the release of the Grand Skeedadle ACW rules, which will be a great thing for those who are used to playing things in the grand manner. Now, I hope you all had a decent laugh there at our absolutely appalling ability to take away 1813 from 2023. And I apologise now to Mr. Poynton, my former maths teacher. I'm sorry, I really should have got that much quicker. But there we go, old age creeping in, and me using calculators all the time and not doing stuff in my head like I used to when I was younger. So that just leads us on to our final guest, and a very special guest it is too. I always enjoy talking to my next guest, Mr. Nick Skinner from Two Fat Lardies. Nick embodies what I enjoy in gaming in terms of his approach to the hobby. He enjoys it. He sees the social side of it. He loves mixing with people and chatting about the hobby, and promoting other people's stuff as well. He's great for retweeting stuff that other people do. Just need to get him into a bit bigger gaming, and he'll be absolutely fine. But he's a lovely guy, and he's done some great stuff recently in the hobby, in Arnhem and Battlefield Challenge, all sorts of stuff. And we're going to talk about all of that now with Nick Skinner. So sit down for the last time and get yourself another brew. You probably need one. We're going to be 50 minutes more, but it's going to fly by. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nick Skinner. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back with another one of our short interviews. And this one is going to be with Nick Skinner, and we spoke to Nick back in episode 7, May 28th, 2021, so 15 months ago. And the first question I've got for you, Nick, is: are you still whistling the theme tune?
Yes, I am. Ilkley More Bartat is a classic, Ken.
It is absolute classic. And before we start talking wargaming, mate, we've got to talk Cricket World Cup, haven't we?
What a great result. It's
unbelievable.
As we record it, it's less than 24 hours ago since England got their hands on that trophy. What an interesting game it was to watch too. Yeah, good stuff.
I was going to say, did you get up and early doors and watch it?
I saw most of it. It was also Remembrance Sunday, so when I was at the village, up the village for the service, my phone in my pocket was buzzing with updates. And the funny thing about our village was that they had a change of operation this time. They had a change of committee that was running the Remembrance service, so somebody new took it on. And consequently, we were running 15 minutes ahead of schedule. So by the time everybody else was starting their 2-minute silence, we'd had the last post, laid the wreaths, and were ready to go home. It was quite comic, really.
I was a bit worried when Pakistan started to bowl because that looked very good and we looked a bit shaky.
Yeah, they've got some good bowlers in their lineup. Is that Shaheen Shah Afridi is a pretty good player, isn't he? He got rid of Hales easy enough.
Yeah, it was good tactics of us to smash his ankle with a ball and then get him to fall over catching someone. I think that's brilliant captaincy. That is, you don't see that.
What we got? Who are the Yorkshiremen in the England team at the moment? They got Adil is Yorkshire, isn't he?
Yeah.
Who else?
Most of our lads are proper red ball cricket.
Yeah.
We're not, I've never been a big fan of white ball cricket. It's too quick.
I'll take it in all its forms. I'm not fussed. I just like to watch it. It reminds me of years and years ago, I had a friend who enjoyed cricket. And of course, before we went into T20, and he said to me, "You know what, Nick?" He says, "I don't understand why somebody doesn't do a format of the game where all you do is try to smash every single ball out the park." He was, little did he know it then, but he was 30 years ahead of his time.
Well, I was brought up with the opening partnership of Jeff Boycott and Dennis Amos for England, and them lads could send a stadium to sleep. 30 for none at lunch. Perfect day. Anyway, we need to get off the cricket and we'll talk a bit of wargaming. You are a busy man.
Tell me about it.
Because every time I look at something, you are going abroad, you're doing battlefield challenges, you're doing lardy days.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get time to be at home or to do a job.
We don't really. I mean, it's been lardy days have been the kind of post-COVID story, I guess. You know, the number of lardy days there are now. Richard was saying the other day, I think he went to, he spent 23 out of 25 weekends doing various stuff. I mean, I kind of did 8 on the trot, and it's a long, they're intense, aren't they? A whole day of gaming takes preparation. You go there, plus of course you probably stay over and have a beer and a curry. So it's a pretty intense activity. Doesn't go down too well with the wife sometimes. And the lardy days have been great. And yeah, Battlefield Challenge. Well, do you want me to talk to you about that quickly, because that was good fun. That was really good.
No, I was going to come on to that. I was going to come on to that in a minute, because the lardy days. I was wondering, are we going to reach capacity at some point? Are they 53 in a year and you can't do them all?
I don't know what the limit is to them, really. I know there's a limit to how many that Richard can go to or I can go to. But we've got them next year. There's going to be one in Norway. There's going to be one up in Trondheim in the new year. If you fancy a trip, I think even a Yorkshireman might need his fluffy slippers on if he goes to Norway in February. And I think actually the Northwest. I don't think there's many lardy activities in the Northwest. I don't know why that is. So if you're in the Northwest and you're listening, because I think across the other side of the Pennines there. They could probably do a bit more with a few more lardy days up there. My mother-in-law's in Liverpool, so don't have any up there because that would be a bit too close.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go and stay over then, aren't you?
Not if we can keep it. Not if we can keep it quiet.
Good. Well, it's fantastic to see, and the ones I've been involved with have been fantastic. I'm at Steel Lard again this year, and it's great to see such a fantastic community and so many people who are just happy and enjoying the gaming.
Yeah, we just came back from last weekend. We were in Antwerp because Crisis, as you know, didn't happen. So Crisis became a lardy day. They called it Lardwerp, which was very original. And we went to the Tin Soldiers of Antwerp, used their, I don't know if you've been to their headquarters on the outside of Antwerp. It's an amazing building because it looks like it's been built out of old chipboard. But once you sort of peel back the chipboard and go inside, there must be about 20 or 30 gaming tables in there. And they were all full of games, including a fantastic 54mm diorama, I guess you call it, of Arnhem Bridge using king and country figures. I mean, it must have been £1 million worth of figures on the table. I'm not kidding you. It was outrageous.
They're not cheap, are they?
No, they weren't. No, they weren't, not at all. It was... This guy had it as his collection, and it looked fantastic. It really was great eye candy. And Ken, it was a big game. The table he had that on must have been 25 feet long, I guess.
Well, David Marshall does a lot of stuff for King and Country, the terrain maker, and the stuff he does is amazing. And Stephen Walder, guy from Australia, who I've interviewed on the podcast in the past, he works in a shop that sells King and Country. And he was telling me the prices. So nice. I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Nick.
Go on.
What is the best Lard Day name?
Yeah, you are putting me on the spot. I think lard work is pretty good. We've had some outrageous ones. Come and have a go if you think you're lard enough was the one that Mark Backhouse ran in Southampton, which is absurd, isn't it?
Yeah,
I like Operation Market Larden. That's pretty simple. Does what it says on the tin. Oozing Lard in Bedford. That's a funny good one. So I think the crazy names knows no bounds, really. There's probably something even more wacky going to come along in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't going to suggest one, to be honest. But what I was going to suggest was that we have Warhammer World with the ginormous Space Marine APC outside.
Right.
And I'm thinking of Lard World.
What would you have outside?
What would you have?
A large.
Would you have like a
pint
statue of, or like a diorama of a car with you and Rich going across to and Sydney in the back on your way to the continent.
Yeah, we could have a 200-metre statue of Sydney, whatever meters are in feet.
I could. French money, as I call it. I don't know how it works. I could just imagine a load of disappointed butchers turning up, though, thinking it was actually Lard World.
Yeah, quite.
Because there's a pencil museum, isn't there? So
there is.
I'm sure there's a Lard museum somewhere. You've got the Lard magazine coming up. Have you got stuff coming in for that?
So, funny enough, I've just got it up on my other screen here because we had another article come in today from Des Darkin. So Des has written something for us. Around Pickett's charge. So that's going to be nice. I think Longstreet's attack is going to be one that he's put forward. But let's have a look. I've got something titled at the moment. It's called Something from Dave Brown. So I don't know what that will be, but it'll be something. We've got the Merville battery scenario is going to go in there. We've got some Dutch Britanniarum. We've got Joe Bilton's doing a terrain build. We've got some stuff for Bag the Hun in there about torpedo bombing in the Mediterranean, so that should be good fun.
Nice.
We've got some Mud and Blood, First World War stuff from Storm of Steel is going to go in. And something also for Algae, which is the First World War set of air combat rules from Alex as well, which will probably go in. Some Maximilian Adventure for sharp practice. Some more Chain of Command in there. A bit of sharp practice down in Mexico. But the stuff's still coming in. And we'll start to put that together from now until early December. And then it should be out early December, hopefully first week if we're lucky.
Yeah, it normally comes out just in time for Christmas, doesn't it?
Yeah, we try to get it out sooner than that. Last year I wasn't very well, which didn't help. Richard had to step in and finish it off. But we normally try to get it ready for early December if we can.
Brilliant. Looking forward to that, as always.
Well, it should be good. It should. There's no, because it's a PDF. Really, we can let it get as big as it comes. People say to me, "What's the word limit?" And I say, "Well, we don't have one as long as it's good. If it's good, it goes in. If it isn't good, it doesn't go in. So we can handle, some meaty things in the magazine, which is great. That's the advantage of it being PDF."
Excellent. Looking forward to it. And now you came on the show fairly early in the run, number 7. We're on 33, as my grandfather used to say. And since you came on, Nick, we've introduced a number of new features, but one of them is Wargames Room 101. And you didn't get to have a go at this, so I think it's only fair that my previous guests should get a chance to get rid of something that they hate. And yes, we understand it's a broad church and everyone enjoys the gaming, but we do all have our pet hates that we want to get rid of. And this is a safe space for us to rant and rave about something within the hobby. So have you had a chance to think of something?
Well, not really, but I think all the good stuff's already been taken. But as we speak, there's been some stuff going on over the last few days, which is starting to rattle my cage a bit. And you're a tweeter, Ken.
Oh,
you like to hang about on Twitter, so it's not really a gaming thing, but it is a kind of an attitudinal gaming thing, I think. And I think I'm seeing lots of worry in the hobby about what's going to happen to Twitter, because Twitter is a nice space to hang around for wargaming. Generally, the community of wargamers on Twitter is really supportive, very positive stuff, very easy way to share messages with people, very easy way to connect with new gamers doing different things. And lots of people I know are worried about, the changes that Elon Musk and his minions and cultists, or whatever they might be, whatever you might refer to them, are shaping things up at Twitter. I don't know, lots of people are thinking about going to do something different and setting up their own chat rooms. And I'm just saying, no, don't do that. You're fragmenting what is a fantastic community. Please, unless we absolutely have to, let's not fragment what is one lovely space into 150 different spaces where we all have our little behind the bike sheds conversations. The great thing about Twitter from wargaming at the moment is that you're out there in front of everybody and everybody can see it, everybody can connect. If we all go underground into these little rooms, who's going to find us? How are they going to find us? Who are we really going to talk to? And so my pet hate at the moment is that conversation. And the fact that even have to have that conversation is driving me nuts. And when I see it on Twitter, it's one of those things where I'm, when you type a reply and then you think, oh no, I better not send that. Because, you just think, it's just driving me mad. So let's stay together as long as we possibly can on Twitter. Who knows what Mr. Musk plans to do with it? But it's a great community and we would really miss it. I would miss it. I'm sure you would too. So yeah, that's my pet hate right now. It might be different next week, but you asked me today.
Exactly. Well, I can hear the door to the vault opening behind me because I am in total agreement with you. It summed it up for me last week, Twitter, because I posted usual sort of stuff I post every day, and I posted my shell splash tutorial. And within 3 replies, I got a picture of Henry Cooper and Kevin Keegan splashing it all on.
Yeah.
And that just for me is just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And Twitter has been a cesspit before Elon Musk got involved.
Yeah.
And it's the tiny corner that we have that works.
Well, it is a cesspit.
I can't see that changing at all.
It's still a cesspit now. If you put your head outside the wargaming world and go into other bits of Twitter, you wish you never went there, because part of it is just horrendous. But the bit that we're in, and the great other thing about it is, of course, we've got no gatekeeper really. We've got the moderation of Twitter, which isn't that fantastic. Let's be honest, you can post almost anything on there. And of course, it's unmoderated. And once you start to have smaller rooms and they get moderated, you're giving power to other people to control the conversation, and I don't like that either.
No, and I think the diversity in what is being done is something that I really enjoy about it, because if I go into my little room with 28mm Italian wars, I'm not going to see what John Savage is doing
exactly
with his British Prussian stuff. I'm not going to see what you're doing at Lard Days, and I would much rather have that and a broad exposure to all sorts of the hobby than kind of being, like you say, hidden in a silo.
Well, I couldn't keep up with it. A few years ago when we had all different forums for different things, and I know they still exist, by the way, all these different forums are still there, but I don't have the time to spend 10 minutes on that one, then go on to another one, then go on to another one. You spend all your life moving between rooms and having the same conversation 100 times. I'd rather just shout into the void that is Twitter and for my message to disappear forever. But at least I've checked, I can sit there and do it all in 5 minutes. And if my tweets go past, as you say, I can be putting a thumbs up to your Italian figures at 1 minute, and I could be looking at John Savage's stuff the next tweet down, and then 2 clicks later I'm looking at a game that I've never seen before because somebody else has replied, and I'm seeing something totally new. So let's not fragment it.
In fact, the door has closed behind us. All those Twitter naysayers have been locked in room 101. And they're in there with pale blue rivers and unpainted flag edges and rivet counters, point systems. I've got a nice little collection behind me.
Pale blue rivers is a brilliant one. Who put that in? That's brilliant.
That was my friend and historian, Stephen Barker. He writes World War I books. And pale blue primary school. He used to be a primary school headmaster.
Yeah.
And he just said, I'm just sick of going to shows and seeing, otherwise really good looking games that look like something one of my kids has done.
I know exactly what it means. I also know that it's bloody hard to get rivers to look really good.
It is. It is. But, and that caused a bit of a storm on Twitter, actually, because a couple of people got annoyed about the Blue River thing. But I caused a bit of a hoo-ha with me Bill Hook's review yesterday, so I'm just used to it.
Yeah, controversy follows you around, doesn't it, Ken?
It does, mate. I don't know why. I think I'm quite a friendly bloke, but people get really upset.
I say what I like, and I like what I bloody well say.
Bloody Captain Boycott here. I'll bloody fly when I bloody like. We'll set off from Leeds Bradford Airport, come back 20 minutes to Leeds Bradford Airport, because anywhere outside Yorkshire's bloody shite. Ale and pace at their best. Anyway, we've digressed on a number of points here.
Sorry,
yeah, it's supposed to be about wargaming this.
I'll try and answer the question you posed to me. That would be the easiest thing to do, wouldn't it?
Well, that's not going to help, is it?
I'll be good.
So, we've come out of lockdown, and you seem to have gone, right, I'm just going to live on the continent as a result. And one of those trips was your Battlefield Challenge, which will forever scar my memory by seeing Sydney in that white coat. But just tell us what happened and where you went.
So the Battlefield Challenge is something that we've done a couple of. We did one before lockdown where Rich and I went to Best in the Netherlands and did explored. Sydney sets us a challenge. He says, I want you to go to this place and find out what happened and then turn it into a scenario. So he's done it twice, and we've done it. He sent us to Best in the Netherlands. That was a really good trip. And what we do is we turn the trip into a YouTube film, which goes on the Two Fat Ladies YouTube channel. So Best is on there, and then we turn it into a scenario which goes in Live Magazine normally. I think the last one went in Live Magazine. Can't remember now. Anyway, this year he set us a different challenge. We're out of lockdown. He set us the challenge of going to the Merville Battery. Now, the Merville Battery is on the western flank of the D-Day perimeter, further west even than Pegasus Bridge. So it was the target of D-Day night. 9th Parachute Regiment landed there under Colonel Otway. And it wasn't really something I knew that much about, to be truthful. I'd never been there. I've done lots of the Normandy battlefields, but I'd never been to Merville. And so we had to go there, research what went on. A bit of intensive reading was required to find out what happened and where. And then the idea is we'd go out there, tell the story, explore the battery, look at the battlefield, walk the ground, and enjoy a bit of French cuisine and a touch of beer while we're there. And it's great. We were out there for, I don't know now, 3 or 4 days, Rich and I. And it was fascinating because it's one of those places, it's what might have been Merville. Because, of course, at Pegasus Bridge, they land right on top of the bridge and they all run out and up the Oxen Bucks and all that stuff. We all know that really well because it went really well and was successful. At Merville, they didn't have quite the same luck. There was supposed to be a group of guys that were going to land right on the middle of the battery, so in amongst all the casements, there's 4 big casements, 4 big concrete bunkers with guns in, plus other concrete bunkers with sleeping Germans in. But they're supposed to land these gliders, and they're going to land them right on top of the right on top of the battery, so the wings would smash off the gliders, and all the guys would jump out, had flamethrowers and Sten guns. But the gliders that were supposed to do that coup de main never arrived. They went down somewhere else. So the guys that were supposed to be attacking from the south of the battery did get in, and it's a really interesting little story. And they kind of get in there and they smash the guns up a bit. They they don't quite take the battery, but they put it out of action for a period of time, and then they have to regroup and pull back. And the Germans do take over the battery again, but the guns are kind of firing on a much reduced schedule, and they have to re-attack in a couple of days, etc. Yeah, really nice story, and we tell the tale of what happened at Merville in that battlefield challenge, which is on our YouTube channel. So anybody who wants to watch that, watch Rich and I make tits of ourselves in France. Go and have a look at it.
We visited there when we were on holiday a few years ago. Because when my lad was younger, he loves a good bunker.
Right, yeah.
He loves a bunker. So we were on holiday, and like you get those pamphlets of places to visit, and he was just looking for bunkers, bless him. So I didn't know much about the Merville Battery story until I went there. And if I remember right, it was just like a little hut where you pay your money to go in. Well, there was when we went.
Not anymore, mate. It's all very high tech now. They've got a posh hut. They've got it's a proper, fairly modern building there. So you have to pay your entrance fee to go and have a walk around.
Yeah, it was like my granddad's shed, and there was some old bloke in there, and you give him a few francs, and it was euros then. It wasn't that long ago.
It's not quite like that now. They've got a little visitor centre there. And they've got a C-47 out there as well that you can look at, and you can still go in all the bunkers. There's different displays in all the bunkers. And there's one, I think the last one is like an audio-visual display of what happened on the night of the attack, etc. It's quite nice.
I remember that one. It is. Do you have like shells going off and smoke and stuff inside it?
That's it, yeah. Yeah, it was good. And there's a little cavalry down the road, because after they've attacked and they pull away again afterwards, Otway and his men regroup at a cavalry, which is about half a mile away, I think, from the battery. And Otway sits there with his head in his hands. So we did this piece to camera. We said, wouldn't it be great, Rich? You sit on the cavalry with your head in the hands, and then you can tell us your story of what happened at the cavalry. So he's sitting at this cavalry, and the French are the most inquisitive nation on the planet. I'm standing there with the camera, and every car and van that goes round the corner, because it suddenly becomes the busiest street corner in the whole of France, is looking and stopping and staring at us and wondering what these stupid English guys are doing. And have you got a bleeper, Ken? Am I allowed to say a rude word?
You can say rude words.
So Rich is saying, why don't you fuck off? Because they're just stopping and staring at us. We're having to film this thing about 30 times. It's hilariously funny. If he ever does an outtake of the cavalry scene, I think it will be the biggest hitting element of our YouTube channel, to be honest, because it's hilarious.
Yeah, that's a definite. We definitely need a battlefield trip outtakes without a shadow of a doubt. I think we used the Major and Mrs. Holt battlefield guides when we went out there. I always find those very useful, because they tie the trip in with like individual stories about the battle. I think they're very good books.
Yeah, the Battleground Europe series are really good as well, for just about everywhere that's in northwestern Europe, including the airborne landings around that eastern side. Did I say west earlier? I meant the eastern side of the D-Day beaches. They're really, really good. And there's a book by Stuart Tootle, which title of the book escapes me, but it's about the story of the attack on Merville Battery. And that's it's about a 400-page paperback, and that's a really good read as well.
Do they have fold-out maps?
No.
It's a bit of a negative, that.
Well, the answer is you get the GSGS ones and get them printed. That's what we do.
I like it when you open a book and you have a map and it comes out of the... I'm showing my age now, aren't I?
No, I know what you mean. Exactly. I know exactly what you mean. The official histories used to be good for that. First World War official histories. They're good.
Yeah,
for
my my books on Mesopotamia from the Imperial War Museum have got all those in.
Those ones I was thinking of.
Amazing. They're not particularly good maps, to be fair.
No, but they feel good. They feel nice because you're unfolding them. It feels like there's something worth looking at here, as opposed to just having a picture on a page. It's funny that.
Yeah, it's really good, really, really good. So, I know you've spoken about this a couple of times on other podcasts, but I'm sure you regale the story to us here on Yorkshire Gamer, and that's your involvement in a games day at the Hartenstein Hotel, just outside Arnhem. So did you just ring them up and say, clear that bloody museum rubbish out, we're doing a game? How did it happen?
As I remember, you know, Jasper at Wargame Soldier and Strategy magazine. So he's associated with the museum in some way. I can't remember what he cleans the toilets or something. I can't remember what he does, but he goes there. He's involved with it in some way. And he had a discussion with them about, you know, maybe we could have a Wargame event. So they said, yeah, okay, well, who could do that? So we were invited to organise it. The museum didn't really know what to expect. They didn't really know what a war game was, to be honest, I don't think. So, you know, it was very much left up to us to design something that they could put in the Hartenstein. And of course, it was really special for us because the Hartenstein really means something to anybody who's associated with the Battle of Arnhem or up in Market Garden or even seen a bridge too far. And when you go there, you know, even as a museum, it's a great museum. The kind of little hairs on the back of your neck stand up. And so when they said, you know, how about putting a war game on? You know, I thought I was straight in there because it was like, yes, absolutely. Of course we would. So then we thought, shit, how do we actually do this? Because it's quite, you know, it's got to be something a bit special. And we, as you say, we told the story quite a lot. So to cut a long story short, we put a team of guys together to deliver what we thought would be a really good wargaming event targeted at non-wargamers that would tell the story of the perimeter at Oosterbeek. Because we thought about what game should we do, because Arnhem, of course, is obviously about the bridge as well. You know, the Battle of Arnhem is about the bridge. But we were at Oosterbeek, which is 8 miles or so from the bridge. So it seemed only right that we would do a game that incorporated what was going on at the museum, at the Airborne Museum, which was the headquarters of the British Airborne Division. So we wanted to include the museum in the table somehow. But then we had the challenge of actually, well, if we do that, of course, the building itself is the headquarters and the fighting is around the perimeter. So what we want to do is show the perimeter, but we also want to have a model of the building. So what we designed in the end was a U shape, effectively, upside down horseshoe of the top of the perimeter, that kind of famously described as the thumb, isn't it? The thumb shape with the base of the thumb on the Rhine. And around the top of the thumb where your nail is, if you put a nail through the middle of your thumbnail, would be the Hartenstein. So we said, right, that's the Hartenstein. What we need to do is show some fighting to the north, to the east, and to the west of the hotel. So we had 3 tables, one to the west, one to the north, one to the east, that told the story of the fighting that was going on during the last days of the perimeter. And they're 3 quite different tables because to the east, you've got what's called the famous, it's the main dressing station crossroads, where you have the first aid posts and the main Utrechtse coming up from Arnhem. So German Stugs are coming up and, you know, trying to attack into that position. And it's very iconic, lots of photos of that location. And of the buildings that were on that crossroads, 2 of them still exist, you know, so you can go and see them, and they're, you know, very much as they were in 1944. The other one, the more famous one of the lot, the Schoonoord Hotel, was destroyed and is now rebuilt as a fairly ugly cafeteria bar, but it sells good beer. And so we had that table, and we thought, well, this has got to be a really well-detailed table. We wanted it to be a really good representation, or in fact, a replica of what was going on at that crossroads, because we had good photos, good aerial photos, and good accounts of what had gone on. I know a bloke who knows a bloke who knows a bloke. We knew that Alan Stewart, who you will recognise in the hobby as being somebody who makes fantastic terrain and is a great scratch builder of, his games are real spectacles if you see them at Partisan or whatever. Well, we know Alan. So we said, Alan, how do you fancy having a go at this table? And of course, he didn't need a second invite, you know, because same as us. The prospect of being involved in a game, you know, at the Hartenstein was, you know, more than he could tolerate. So he was in there straight away. So him and A. Deacon focused on that table, and they did a really good replica of that table. It looks fantastic. The photos are brilliant, and supported by Martin Niklaus from Germany, Motorai, he's known as on Twitter, who paints some beautiful, beautiful toys, and we used his toys on there as well, and they look brilliant. So that table was looked after by those guys. I did the Northern Perimeter table, which was the more urban setup that people have probably seen at the shows around the UK. It's not as good as Alan's, but it's been out more often. It's the ugly sister by comparison, but it gets more dates. So, and that's been really fun to do. A lot of 3D buildings from Paul Edwards, telling the story of the collapse of the Northern Perimeter road by road as it gets closer to the Hartenstein. And then on the west, we had a much more open table at Sonnenbergerlaan, which is basically a country estate with a straight sort of country ride that goes through the estate. At the bottom of the ride, the British had some 17-pounders and the Germans attacked with some old French Charbis that were modified to be Flampanzer tanks. So we thought that would be a bit of interesting variety for us for a scenario on there. So we played that game, and that was a different table. And Richard kind of looked after that one on the basis that it gave him less to cock up. So we didn't want to give him that much. So we just kept it simple for him and gave him that table. And the three went together. Alan did a model of the Hartenstein as well. So the Hartenstein was in the room, and we had these tables around it. And we took the game, played them at the hotel using chain of command, but didn't play them for wargamers. These were for people who would want to walk in the room and learn what we were doing with toy soldiers. What is this? What are you doing? We're playing a war game. It works like this. I throw some dice and then we do stuff. So we were giving people little snippets of action that they would play out. So they were slightly different tables to the ones that you would have chosen if you were a wargamer, because there are more interesting tactical scenarios that we could have developed, but none of them would have told the story in the same way as those tables. So he wanted to tell the story. Long and short of it is that it was a very, very successful, more successful than we'd hoped. Really, we were kind of a bit scared that people were going to walk in and say, "How dare you play a game?" When many people die here, and here you are playing a game of toy soldiers. But I think we presented it in a way that was respectful and demonstrated that we were there to learn about how the battle went and could use the war game as we use it as a lens. We use it as a lens, and then you can explore what happened, and people were able to see what happens. And it's a little bit more interactive than simply walking around the museum and looking at a Vickers machine gun in a glass cabinet.
Yeah, I think it's. We had a little chat at Partisan, didn't we? And one of the things I said to you then, and I'll repeat for the audience, is that the quality of those tables was just absolutely amazing. And to me, it was entering into that railway modelling world, because railway modellers were always miles better at it than we are, sadly. Was there an element of pressure to produce quality for, the location? It's obviously going to be a big opportunity for wargaming. So was there a level of pressure there to produce something of that standard?
I think we created a bit of pressure for ourselves. I don't think there was any pressure at all. The museum didn't know what they were going to get, so we could have turned up with our pale blue rivers, and played a game with unpainted figures as far as the museum was initially concerned. But then when we showed them what we'd done, I think they were absolutely gobsmacked. So we created a pressure for ourselves and said, look, we're taking the game to the Hartenstein. Let's be honest, it might be the only time we ever do it. We're certainly the first people to have done it. So let's make sure that we do a good show. We put in a good effort. And we were able to do that kind of model railway level scenery, mainly because of 3D printing. So we could produce, if we were asked to do it 5 years ago, we couldn't have done some of those tables because it would have all had to have been scratch built. But now, because of 3D printing, I went out there in May and we're taking photos of buildings around the perimeter and sending them back to Paul, and Paul's turning them into 3D prints. So you've got this ability to create something in detail that you've never had before. So that I think we did create our own pressure for it to be good. I see, when I go around war game shows, I see loads and loads of fantastic tables. And I see many, many tables that are better than the one that I took to Arnhem, that Northern Perimeter game. It's a very crowded table. It looks very nice, lots of detail in it. But you know what? I don't think we succeeded in achieving something that other gamers can't achieve. It's not as if we say, "Oh, this is the best table that's ever been made, mate." It's not like that. It wasn't like that at all. We did the best that we could, or the best that we were able and willing to put in the time available. And I'm really pleased with what we got out of it. And it's, as good as some of the good stuff that's out there. Alan's table will be, I think, a Partisan next year. And he will take it around the shows a bit more next year. So get to see it because, he's even done the tram lines in the road outside the hotels. And we had quite a lot of discussion on the WhatsApp group about what does the tram line look like? Because apparently it finishes outside the hotel. And because we knew that people locally would be coming, and we knew that, I don't know, that the local expert on tram history from Arnhem was probably going to walk in the door. And the last thing we wanted him to say was, "Oh, very nice table, but you got that wrong." So we really tried to get things, as accurate as we could. And we had lots of local visitors. People were coming to the museum. A woman who worked in the museum came and had a look about what was going on. And she said, "I know the person who lives in that house." And she phoned him up and he came up in the afternoon. And he said, "Oh, my God, you created my house in miniature." Adrian Deacon had done it. And he was able to tell us all the story about the house and everything. His family's generations of his family lived in it, etc., etc. We couldn't have achieved that with just if we'd done blue rivers and unpainted figures.
Yeah, and that was the story I was hoping you were going to tell. I would have prompted you if you hadn't. But the
well, he was great because he said, "This house, this is my house." And we said, the first thing we said to him was, "What did your back garden look like?" Because we were trying to work out what the back of the house looked like. And he looked around and said, "Oh, it's really good. They've got this shed and that shed." And then he said, "Oh, the house next to me, that was a sweet shop. And the man 2 doors down was in the Resistance. And then another house 3 doors up the road. After Arnhem, a V2 rocket landed in the back garden and didn't explode." Just able to get this story that went with it. And on my table, on the Northern Perimeter table there, where we had the rows and rows of houses, people were saying, recognising the road and saying, "I grew up in that road." And they were telling the story about all the civilians that were hiding in the cellars, which is something we don't often think about. And when you've got 30 odd houses on the table, you suddenly think, gosh, each one of these has got a family hiding in the cellar. Because in Arnhem, the war came overnight. It just literally came in by parachute and was there, 2 hours after it had been peaceful before.
Amazing stories. And I suppose that's the sort of thing that we're seeing in Ukraine now, isn't it? With
tragically,
everyone having a camera and seeing that sort of things of families sadly trapped in cellars for a number of days. The engagement that you got from the public seemed to be really, really positive, as you said earlier on. Do you think that this is something that is a potential for Wargamers to spread to other locations?
Yeah, I think there's loads of museums that could benefit from, having a war game event. I mean, I don't know that it would necessarily double your numbers, but it will certainly double the interaction of the people that are there, I think. So I think of museums all across the UK. I think the Royal Armouries might do something already around wargaming up in your neck of the woods.
We've been involved. I did Jutland for the World War One weekend that they did, and because our club has a close relationship with them, we're doing Pavia in front of the Pavia display. I don't know if you've seen it. There's a knight on horseback and a load of guys, full size,
fantastic,
with pike and stuff. So we're going to be in front of there in a couple of years' time.
Well, that would be great. That would be great. And I think if I was to pass on one bit of learning from our experience to you, Ken, it would be, that these events are so much better when you get people who are able to turn their faces to the audience as opposed to just gamers around a table, because that's when the interaction happens. I'd like to do more of it. I mean, having said that, what we did in Arnhem, it cost us a lot of money for a start. We were out there for 5 days, and on our expenses bill, that's quite a big hit. And I don't know that we could, come back and do it again next year. Well, maybe we could, but I don't think. I think we kind of burst our bubble a bit this year. I don't know if we could do that again in the same way next year. But I think there are other museums definitely where I'd like to take something to them and play there. Imagine playing Trafalgar, on board HMS Victory. There we go. That's a life goal.
Oh, exactly.
In the grand cabin at the back, we could play Trafalgar. Wouldn't that look great?
Would be amazing. There was some guys on the Naval Wargaming group on Facebook who did a game inside HMS Belfast.
Yeah.
A number of years ago. So I'm trying to push that again with my World War II stuff because I think that would be perfect location for it. But yeah, wargamers out there listening, I think it's a great way to promote the hobby.
And I think we're kind of past that stage that we were maybe 20 years ago,
where it was people would laugh at you for playing with toy soldiers. I think society in general has grown up a little bit more and see it as an important tool for studying and learning about history. So I think it's a great opportunity to do all the stuff. So has your stomach recovered from all these trips then?
My stomach is a resilient beast.
With the number of War Games photographs of you talking to members of the public at the table and playing the game is probably inversely proportional to the number of pictures of you drinking beer or eating a nice meal. So.
Yeah. Well, it's I must be one of I think I must be becoming one of Wargaming's biggest bores, I think, because seems to be the only thing I talk about at the moment is what we did in Arnhem. But people are very interested in it, which is great, and I'm really happy to tell the story. But yeah, we like to enjoy ourselves, and Ken, it's you put a lot of effort into these games, and it's nice to relax. A huge part of the gaming is the social side of what you do and why you do it and who you do it with. And we had a good bunch of guys in. We had an international group of guys in Arnhem. So we had Dutch guys, Belgian guys, English guys, German guys there. And we enjoyed ourselves. Yeah, we did. We had a nice time. As I say, we blew the hospitality budget in one go, really. And they've got some great bars in Arnhem. There's the Tap House in Arnhem, if you ever go. So the Tap House, they've got one of these systems where you walk in there and down the middle of the bar, down the middle of the pub, which must be 100 yards long, I guess. They've just got a row of taps. And so you can pour your own beer. So you have your little credit card that you have to buy from the bar. You charge it up, put your 40 quid on it, or whatever you want to put on it. And then you put it next to the tap, and then you pour your own beer. And I'm not kidding you. I think we counted there are 55 beer taps on one side and 55 beer taps coming up the other side. So if you can't have a good night there, you never have a good night anywhere, are you?
Exactly. And I think it's fantastic to see. I think if we all spent more time in the pub drinking and having a good laugh about wargaming instead of writing shitey comments about what we do on the internet, then the world would be a lot better place.
Yeah, they don't sell Tetley Bitter though, Ken.
Was it? Oh,
they don't sell any Yorkshire beer out there.
Do they not?
No.
I'll bring some over from. Get special delivery from Masham. So just to finish off this little chat on Arnhem and just move away from the gaming thing itself, and I'd be interested in your opinion on this, because something I've been pondering on is why do we as Brits and the Dutch as well, but I can understand more for the Dutch, spend so much attention on Arnhem. It's fascinating, don't get me wrong, but it didn't go particularly well at the end of the day. So the drive to the Roar or something like that would probably be better if we were going for a 3-point victory away from home. So what do you think it is with Arnhem that draws us to it?
Well, I think it's got a bit of everything, isn't it? It's quite romantic. It's got the airborne element, the paratroopers defending, last ditch stand, God Save the King, and all that stuff. So it's got that romance. It's that classic British heroic failure, isn't it, as well? Yeah. Although interestingly, I think we see it now as a failure in the way that it was never seen as before. But the more I read about it, the more I research it, the more I visit it, the more it becomes apparent that the Germans won, and that and through their own good actions as much as anything else. But yeah, it's a heroic failure. It's got a bit of everything. It's the Nelly story, I suppose. And of course, it's been immortalised in film, hasn't it? Which drew everybody into it. No, everybody's seen A Bridge Too Far, and I'm going to say something controversial. As far as most people are concerned, it tells an okay story. If you understand the story of Bridge Too Far, then actually that's a reasonable platform to use as a start point to understand what actually went on.
Yeah, it's. I remember going to see that, the pictures. I can't remember how old I was, but I was relatively young. And I remember coming out slightly disillusioned because we'd lost. And I think that was the first time that I ever realised, as a young lad, that the British could lose. Or it could not go particularly well.
Yeah.
But now, every time I see that film, I watch it. And when my lad was at primary school, in his last year, they had to do like a project on World War II. So we sat down and we watched Bridge Too Far, and he wrote a little 2-page thing and drew a load of stuff about it. So that always brings back lovely memories of sitting there with my lad and talking about the film. So,
well, we've taken people out there. I've taken quite a few friends out there to visit various points on Howells Highway, and every time we go, I say to them, "Well, watch the film before you go, because that will give you some kind of understanding." And then when we're out there, you say, "Okay, you remember the bit with Michael Caine when he says start the purple? Well, that's here. That's where we are now. And what happened here was blah blah blah." So it gives them at least a grounding. It's got a bit of everything, I think. And if you're as a wargamer, of course, it's got a variety of German units. It's got American paratroopers. It's got German SS. It's got tanks, British tanks. What more do you want? I've been making actually earlier on today some Vaal crossings of American paratroopers in their little boats for the Vaal crossing.
Oh yes,
Paul Edwards has made some little Goatley boats, and I'm putting some paras in for jump off markers for the Vaal crossing game, which is possibly the most one-sided game we've ever played.
Brilliant! It's certainly popular all over Britain, and we all talk about Arnhem. We all do stuff with Arnhem, and I just wanted your thoughts on that, because we did take a hell of a beating, as that Norwegian commentator once said.
Well, we went a bridge too far, Ken. That's what it's all about.
We did. They should do a film about it, mate.
They should, yeah. And they used the wrong plan. Apart from that.
So talking of plans, then, just to finish off, what is in the future for Mr. Nick Skinner and the Lardies?
Well, we've got a few things in the bag now. Under COVID, lots of different hairs started running, and everything went not very far because we couldn't get together to do it. Now we come out of that, games days permitting, and overseas trips permitting, things are now starting to move forward again. What a Cowboy is going to be coming out soon. That's
brilliant.
If you play What a Tanker, you'll be able to pick up What a Cowboy really easily. So it's a good fun game. John Savage has been driving that, and it's very, very close to being ready to be released.
I'm hoping to be able to turn that into What a Geezer.
Well,
with the cops and robbers stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Actually, I must send you a link. I saw a good van on eBay that I thought would be right up your street.
Oh, sorted.
I'll send you a link. What else are we doing? Richard's working on the Far East supplement. He's getting quite excited about that. We're still doing Market Garden. I've still got to finish the supplement. The good news about the trip we made to Arnhem was that Richard and I spent, apart from spending 5 days in each other's company, we also spent 6 hours each way locked in the car, talking about the way we wanted the campaign to work. So we unblocked the last couple of blocks on that. So we it's just the hard work to get that through to fruition. Then what else is there? I don't know beyond that, really. I can't see beyond that at the moment. I've been stuck in Arnhem, literally, like First Airborne.
Yeah.
And I need to get that finished, and then I can get on with some other stuff. I'm really keen to get back onto my Mexicans. I want to do some Alamo Mexicans.
You were painting Mexicans last time we spoke.
Yeah, still doing that. It's
a burrito too far.
Well, no, it's still there. It's still doing it, and I'm still hoping to work on it. The bad news for me is, of course, that Nick Futter has sold Boot Hill Miniatures to Brigade Games in the States. So all the toys are now in America, whereas I was going to buy them from Nick. And I've been really good. I've been pacing myself and saying, don't go mad, Nicholas. Only buy what you need. And then when you're ready to get the next unit, you can buy them. And then bugger me, he sold the lot. So good for him. I've spoken to him. I completely understand why he did that, and I hope he made a load of money from it. But it means I've just got to change my plan a little bit. but I'm still going to do that because it's good fun. I need a distraction, Ken. I've been stuck in Market Garden, which is a very heavyweight piece of history, and I just need to clear my mind and do a bit of fun stuff.
I fully understand that because I've been stuck in Garibaldi world for nearly a year, and I'm sick of painting red. And these huge 1/700 scale ships come along,
nice,
and
though.
now I'm hooked on those. And I'm buying all these photo etch benders and all this sort of stuff that I've never heard of in my life.
Do you have photo etched benders in Yorkshire? Surely not.
Well, I can't say anymore. I tell you what I did buy today, and it came through the post. 1/700 scale photo etch sailors, and all I can say is they are fucking small.
Yeah,
they are tiny.
They must be. Wow. Where are you going to put them?
So, I've got some. I'm building some merchantmen at the moment. So I'm going to use them on the merchantmen first and see what they look like, and then if they look good, I'll add them to the guns and stuff on the destroyers.
Wow, nice.
So there we go. So the 400-page full colour second edition of Is the Lord Spares Us is still in planning, is it, mate?
Yeah, it's still there. There's there's a guy on Facebook who's First World War in the Middle East, I think he is on Facebook, and he's just been out to Gaza and Palestine and all the places where my great uncle fought, and sending back photos of these amazing locations where the action took place in 1917. So I've had my appetite's been tickled a bit by those. I can't see. I'm not at the moment, Ken. I can't see myself going back there yet.
Mate. I'm just pushing it for my own personal reasons.
You swine, you.
And I'll be putting a big game on at Steel Lard again this year. So, which reminds me, I need to sort that out because it's only next weekend.
Next weekend, so, yeah. I'm not.
Is anyone coming up? I think.
So I had to duck out earlier in the year because we've got a domestic clash this weekend, and Richard was going, but I think he's had to pull out. So Richard and I won't be there. Is Sid going? Sid might be there. Can't remember now.
He'll be doing
he normally goes up north.
Bonsai Bonkers.
Bonsai Bonkers, exactly. Yeah, we played that in.
Has he changed his mind yet on that?
Well, it's called something else longer than that, but we just call it Bonsai Bonkers.
Rubbish.
Bonsai Bonkers is the working title. That's what we know and love it as.
Yeah, I think if it came out as anything else, sales would drop dramatically. I think Bonsai Bonkers, you're gonna. What's that big toy company? Hambro or whatever it's called. They'll pick that up, mate. It'll be bigger than Monopoly.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. Well, you need to play is 18 square inches of tabletop, so it is a bonsai game for
Barnsley people. Bonkers, Birmingham Bonkers, Bristol Bonkers. It's just endless, mate. Absolutely endless. Well, once again, Nick, it's absolutely fantastic to speak to you. Really enjoyed that chat tonight. And I'm sure we'll bump into each other at the next show that we're both at.
Nice talking to you, Ken. Thanks very much for letting me come back on, and keep up the good work. I'll keep going with those ships. They look bloody brilliant, mate.
No worries. Look out for a 48-foot by 18-foot table at a show near you very soon.
I don't think we'll be able to miss it if it's that big. It'll be the only table in the show.
Well, I don't know if you've seen, I've got those little shell splashes. They're only
nice.
They're 50 millimetres in French money. I've got some battleship ones I've done now, which are 140 millimetres. And my wife's thinking of using them for Christmas trees.
Okay.
So there we go. Thanks very much, Nick.
No problem. Take care.
So there we go, 2 hours and 24 minutes in. We've come to the end of our catch-up episode, and we've had 3 chats with 3 very different guests, all of which fantastic to see and speak to again. And I hope you've enjoyed those little mini interviews. Well, for Yorkshire Gamer, the mini interviews anyway. And if you haven't listened to the original episodes with my guests tonight, then I suggest that you pop back in the archive and have a listen to the full episodes with them, which are normally a couple of hours long. So we get to go and delve into lots and lots of stuff, which is absolutely fantastic. That just leaves me to mention my next episode, episode 34, and hopefully my guest will be Rohan Saravanamutu, and I hope I've got that right. I'm sure Rohan will correct me if I'm wrong in the next episode. And Rohan has a book out at the moment through Helion, and that's called Leipzig, the Battle of Nations. We mentioned Leipzig earlier on when I demonstrated my appalling maths capability, and it's obviously the 210th anniversary. Yeah, you'd think I'd practiced that before, of the battle next year. And Rohan has brought a book out, just getting some ideas together, some scenarios about how to put together what was the biggest battle of the Napoleonic Wars, often neglected here in the UK because we had a rocket battery and a couple of officers there. We weren't really involved majorly in the fighting. Tends to take second fiddle to Waterloo for us Brits, but it's a fascinating battle. Absolutely massive. I'm lucky enough to have played it on a humongous scale in the past, and it's on the bucket list, I think, of all big Battle Napoleonic gamers. And Rohan is certainly that. He's been gaming for over 40 years. And if you look in the background pictures of the War Games Holiday Centre, you might see his face a couple of times. So I'm looking forward to that. And I hope to have that out with this increased pace in a couple of weeks' time. So until then, civi.